There's a moment people don't talk about. It's not the wedding day, not the vows, not the photos. It's the quiet moment after the decision is made. When the relief comes first, not excitement, not longing, relief. Your body finally loosens, your chest softens, your mind goes quiet. Not because you chose love, but because the fear stopped screaming. The fear of being alone, of not being chosen, of ending up with nothing at all. And that's the moment many people quietly realize they're marrying someone they never truly loved. That's when people tell themselves they've grown up, that they chose peace, stability, the sensible life. I've watched people celebrate that feeling. I've watched them call it maturity. But over time, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Some people don't get abandoned by their partner. They abandon themselves to keep the relationship alive. And the pain doesn't arrive immediately. It comes later, when you start noticing how much of yourself you've had to leave behind just to make the marriage work. On the surface, the decision looks responsible. Two people, compatible lives, aligned plans. Friends nod approvingly. Family relaxes. Questions finally stop. People say things without realizing what they're doing. You're lucky. At least you're secure. This is what real adulthood looks like. You smile. You agree. You play the role. And that silence feels like success. But here's the part no one warns you about. When a decision is made from fear, it doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. What you call maturity often starts as negotiation with yourself. You lower the volume on certain thoughts. You stop asking uncomfortable questions. You tell yourself love isn't supposed to feel intense anyway. That intensity fades. That passion is for younger people. You remind yourself that stability matters more, that this is what responsible people choose, that wanting more would be ungrateful. So you trade aliveness for certainty, and you call that growing up. This is how emotional self-abandonment begins, not with drama, not with betrayal, but with small, invisible choices. You pause before speaking, not because you're kind, but because it's easier not to explain yourself. You notice which thoughts never make it out of your mouth anymore, which jokes you quietly retire, which parts of you feel unnecessary, excessive, or out of place. You start editing yourself before the relationship ever asks you to. You laugh less freely, you share fewer strange thoughts, you soften your edges until you fit the relationship instead of living inside it. Nothing feels wrong. That's the danger, because the relationship doesn't hurt. It just slowly replaces you. Look at the daily rhythm. Mornings run smoothly. You pass each other in the kitchen. Coffee, toast, weather talk. The question, how did you sleep, becomes a formality. You already know the answer before it's said. Schedules work, bills get paid. Evenings follow a script, dinner, TV, separate phones. Good night becomes a habit, not a moment. Conversations revolve around logistics, groceries, appointments, plans for next month. There are no big fights, no obvious cracks. From the outside, it looks calm, functional, successful. But notice the quiet details. The relief you feel when they're busy. The way time stretches when you're alone. The subtle tension when intimacy becomes expected instead of desired. You're not unhappy. You're absent. And absence is harder to explain than pain. At some point, usually in a quiet moment, a thought appears that feels too heavy to say out loud. I'm living a lie. Not because everything is bad, but because nothing feels real. And when that thought appears, you don't act on it. You argue with it. You tell yourself this is normal, that no relationship feels alive forever, that everyone doubts sometimes. You remind yourself of everything that works, everything that would be complicated to undo. You compare your quiet emptiness to other people's visible chaos and decide yours is easier to live with. You don't deny the truth outright. You bury it under explanations, responsibilities, and reasonable arguments until it becomes quiet enough to ignore again. And that's when your body notices long before your mind does. Sleep becomes lighter. Restlessness creeps in. Small things irritate you more than they should. You crave silence, space, distance, without knowing exactly from what. Because the body doesn't understand compromise the way the mind does. It reacts to what's missing, not to what looks correct on paper. You can justify a relationship. You can explain it. You can defend it, but you can't convince your nervous system to feel alive inside it. When connection fades, the psyche adapts. Some people disappear into work. Long hours feel meaningful. At least something is moving forward. Others make themselves indispensable, needed, reliable, the person everyone counts on. Some escape into imagined versions of life, moments that never happened but feel more vivid than the one they're living now. These aren't moral failures, they're substitutions. Because the need to feel seen doesn't vanish just because you signed a marriage license. And beneath all of it, there's something else most people don't want to admit. You can stay busy for a long time, responsible, useful, needed. But you know there's a moment coming when there will be nothing left to manage for other people, no roles to perform, no urgency to hide behind, no one depending on your constant functioning. And when that noise falls away, the truth gets louder, not dramatic, not explosive, just clear. Inner clarity has a way of destroying outer self-deception. You notice it sometimes when you're around other couples, not because they're perfect, but because something feels present, alive. And the question isn't whether they're happier. It's why you feel so far away from yourself. From the outside, leaving looks simple. From the inside, it feels impossible. Years are invested, lives intertwined, families merged, identities built. Admitting the truth wouldn't just change the present, it would rewrite the past. And shame steps in quietly. Not loud, not dramatic. The shame of being ungrateful, the shame of disrupting stability, the shame of admitting, this looked right, but it wasn't real for me. You tell yourself you should be grateful. Nothing is wrong. Others have it worse, so you stay. Not because you're weak, but because unraveling feels worse than disappearing slowly. Loveless marriages don't all end the same way. Some become roommate agreements, friendly, functional, safe. Two people who care about each other's well-being but stopped caring about each other's aliveness. Others turn brittle. Every small habit becomes unbearable. Respect erodes into contempt. What started as quiet absence becomes loud resentment. But most don't explode, and most don't find peace. They just run parallel. Two people in the same house, moving through the same days, never truly meeting. You can survive a marriage without passion. You cannot survive one without respect. And when respect is gone, what remains isn't a relationship. It's a performance neither person fully believes in anymore. I can't make this decision for you, and I won't pretend there's a simple answer. But understand this, not choosing is still a choice. And here's what almost never happens when people don't choose. Leaving isn't the only form of courage. Some people don't walk away. They stop disappearing. They choose something harder than distance. Clarity, real conversations, not about logistics, but about what's been missing, what's been avoided, and who they've both become. For a few couples, honesty doesn't end the relationship. It finally begins one, not the safe version, not the familiar one, but a conscious partnership. Chosen again, with eyes open. Not everyone can do this, and not every relationship survives it. But for most people, clarity never arrives, and time keeps moving anyway. Roles will fall away, distractions will fade, and one day, there will be nothing left between you and the life you built, just routine. And yourself. The question isn't whether you stay or leave. The question is what remains of you if you keep living this way. Some people leave marriages, others stay and slowly disappear. And the most painful part isn't choosing the wrong person. It's realizing you chose safety over being real and called it love.